It is the heart that pumps both love and hatred into the game.
In the air, it has drifted. It's gone!
The defining moment that breathes life into an otherwise forgettable year or devastates a glorious campaign.
They are down. They cannot move. They're in shock.
It is a rivalry.
Number one, the team that hits the hardest will win without any question. If you take it to them, if you don't make mistakes, and you keep taking it to them, hell, there's no question who will win. There's no question who will win. Now let's go out and do it. Let's go.
Rarely has the game seen a coach as volatile as Ohio State's Woody Hayes, and nothing sparked his fury more than the University of Michigan. "I won't give that state 1 cent of my money," he once said, refusing to fill an empty gas tank in Michigan as he pushed his car back over the Ohio border. Hayes' competitive spirit was matched by the Wolverines' Bo Schembechler. Each drove his team with relentless passion, and for a magical decade, they used college football to wage a personal war.
One of them was emotional and fiery and extremely competitive, and you couldn't talk any sense into him. And the other one was just like it. I mean, Woody and Bo were cut from the same cloth.
In 1949, Wayne Woodrow Hayes became the head football coach at Miami of Ohio. He inherited a squad that included a 20-year-old offensive tackle named Glenn Edward Schembechler.
I hated him. I think just like everybody else, when he first came to Miami, he was unreasonable.
The intense and dedicated Hayes recognized the same traits in his tackle and quickly grew enamored with him. So 8 years later, Bo accepted Woody's offer to join his staff at Ohio State.
Woody loved Bo when he was on the staff here, even if they did fight. Well, that's one of the things I think Woody admired about Bo. One day, Woody got so mad, he picks his projector up and threw it across the table at Bo at the other end. And Bo got mad and got up and broke a chair and threw it at the other end of the floor and walked out. He says, "I quit." That's the way they were.
In 1968, Ohio State was crowned national champion. En route to their perfect season, the Buckeyes trounced the arch-rival Wolverines 50-14. Humiliated, Michigan hired Schembechler. The student and the teacher were about to clash.
I enjoyed working for him, and I learned a lot working for him. There certainly wasn't any gleam in his eye when I took the job at Michigan, though. That kind of shocked him.
Bo and Woody faced off for the first time in the final game of the 1969 regular season. The 7-2 Wolverines were impressive, but all eyes were on the Buckeyes. Ohio State had not lost in over 2 years.
Well, I'll tell you, Bill, if we win this Michigan game, then I'll have to say it's the greatest season of my life, yes.
They were touted as the greatest collegiate football team of all time, and that the only team that was capable of beating this team was the Minnesota Vikings.
The Wolverines may have been enormous underdogs, but Schembechler made sure his players would be ready.
The week of the Ohio State game, he put 50 on the shower curtains. He put 50 on each guy's locker. We couldn't go anywhere without seeing 50. And he said, "That old man put 50 points on you guys last year, and I'm not going to let you forget it."
1st and 10, and the handoff goes to Billy Taylor, finds an opening, goes to the 25, rides off tacklers, goes to the 20-yard line, down the sideline to the 13, the 10. He's out of bounds on the 5. This Michigan Stadium is absolute bedlam.
we went nuts. All of the work that we did, all of the weightlifting, all the sweat, it all came back. That game was ours to take, and we couldn't be stopped.
Ohio State now with their backs to the wall.
Bo Schembechler, he knew how to beat the Buckeyes and how to beat his old boss.
Michigan taking a page out of Ohio State's book that time.
And there it is, what has to be the upset of the century.
Michigan's shocking and dramatic 24-12 win turned Hayes' dream season into a nightmare.
I have never seen a football team so emotionally up for a game as Michigan was today.
Every reporter, everybody wanted to talk to Bo. And across the hall, I can still remember Woody Hayes sitting at this like cardboard table with his hat off. He had his hand in his head. He's just shaking his head. That day when we got beat, Woody said, "Men, all great things must come to an end. And we'll start preparing today for next year."
You've made this mistake 15 times this fall. Now you listen. God damn it, I'm tired of it. You lose us a ball game, and by God, I'll throw you off the squad. He's the guy you gotta hit him. He was
a rug maker in Columbus, believe it or not, presented Woody with a rug that said 1969, Michigan 24, Ohio State 12. 1970, Ohio State ? Michigan ?
All year long, we ran over that carpet, and that was a reminder of what had happened to us the previous year.
In 1970, Ohio State beat Michigan 20-9. The rivalry was established, and it would grow in intensity. Mirror images of each other, Michigan and Ohio State dominated their conference. Each year, they would fight in the season finale for the Big Ten crown and a Rose Bowl berth as Bo and Woody's personal battle raged on.
I liken the deal to the Second World War. That was the background that these guys were brought up in, and they knew how to wage war in the trenches. They were perfectly happy to have a game in which not one forward pass was thrown. Bo and Woody, they wanted to slug it out.
We all have to be pushed. It's a competitive thing. I despise for people to beat us.
I must admit, I told our staff, we're going to do something every day in order to beat Ohio State.
We prepared for Michigan all year long. Our spring practice was geared towards Michigan. First day of practice every week during the regular season. We geared it towards Michigan.
In 1978, Michigan beat Ohio State 14-3. It was Hayes and Schembechler's final battle. In their team's 10 meetings, Bo had a slight edge, defeating his mentor 5 times and tying him once. But any results on the field were eclipsed by a relationship that will forever define this rivalry. "We respected one another so damn much," Hayes once said. "That doesn't mean I didn't get so mad I wanted to kick him in the groin."
He'd go to the 50-yard line, and he'd stay on his side of the 50. I'd walk up to the other 50. We'd shake hands. "Hi, Woody, how are you? And it's a nice day and everything. I hope we have a great game." Good. And we'd turn around and walk away. And that was our meeting. That's 10 years. They call it the 10-year war. And as far as football competition, it was a war.
Don't forget, man, today's the day we're gonna win. We're gonna get them on the run. We're gonna go, and we aren't gonna stop until we go to that goal line.
Rockne, McKay, Horning, Simpson, Montana, Allen. For over 75 years, some of the game's most legendary figures have graced the field wearing the colors of USC and Notre Dame. It is a foundation of excellence that built one of college football's premier confrontations.
For so many years, it was the University of Southern California and the University of Notre Dame, both putting out high-profile athletes, both with great heritage, going against one another. And it was just going to be a matter of who was going to be the national champion. Who's the greatest football program? And the game was on. Battle was on. I mean, you just felt it. It was like something you wanted to be a part of.
In 1921, Howard Jones was the head man at Iowa. His Hawkeyes handed the Irish their only loss of the season. After the game, Notre Dame head coach Newt Rockne met Jones at midfield, looked him in the eye, and simply said, "You owe me one." So in 1926, when Rockne defeated Jones, now at USC, the debt was repaid, and the game's first intersectional rivalry was born. The two schools would annually travel by train to face each other, generating national publicity while fueling a growing sport.
The train was just like a presidential whistle-stop tour. They would stop at these towns, and they'd give a little speech, and everybody in the town would come out, and here comes the Notre Dame team.
They took these 2-week road trips, and the writers would get on the trains, and they'd be writing travel logs en route to South Bend, Indiana, with the Trojans, and vice versa.
In the first 7 years of the rivalry, Notre Dame and USC each captured 2 national championships.
I take great pleasure in presenting to you, Howard Jones, this trophy, emblematic of national football supremacy. Any team that could defeat Notre Dame, as you defeated them, adequately deserves this trophy.
3 decades later, it was still college football's showcase. Ara Parseghian and John McKay, like Rockne and Jones before them, staged epic duels. In 1964, Parseghian's first year as Notre Dame's head coach, his Irish were 30 minutes away from a perfect season. Down 17 points, McKay's Trojans came back and squashed Notre Dame's title hopes with one daring play.
4th and 8. He throws. Complete to Sherman. A touchdown for USC.
Having the national championship, having everything right in our fingertips, and then losing it. Well, that was a traumatic experience. And during my 11 years, the national championship was either won or we influenced the outcome of the national championship by knocking one another out.
In 1972, USC laid claim to a national crown after running over the Irish. The next year, it was Notre Dame's defeat of the Trojans that allowed them to celebrate a title. And in 1974, Parseghian's final season on the sidelines, the championship was again at stake.
Touchdown, Notre Dame.
Trailing 24-6 at the half, McKay issued a bold proclamation.
He said, "Hey, boys, we've got to score more than 24 points or we're going to get beat." And he says, "I'll tell you one other thing. We're going to return this second half kickoff. Anthony Davis will go 98 yards for a touchdown."
So I'm walking down the tunnel, and Notre Dame comes out behind, and somebody yells out, "We're going to kick the ball to Davis. We're going to kick his ass."
All right, it's been an Irish afternoon as he boots it high and long in the end zone. Davis coming out at the 10, 15, 20, coming outside of the 30. He's at the 35, the 40. He's going all the way. They won't catch him. Touchdown, USA.
In a stunning comeback, Southern Cal exploded for 49 points in just 17 minutes and won 55-24. The victory propelled USC to its 6th national title.
Well, Ara Parseghian is going to feel like the sky is falling. It's one of the most incredible turnarounds I have ever seen.
Coach motioned to me late in the 3rd quarter, looked around, he says, "Damnedest thing I've ever seen."
In a twist of fate, Parseghian's career and title hopes ended just as they had started 11 years earlier, at the hands of the Trojans.
I told the kicker to kick the ball away from Anthony Davis. I had the impulse to grab him, not that I could have, but at any rate, you could visually see the momentum in the game and the attitudes change on the field.
You just felt something happen. And that was truly, genuinely the night that Ara Parseghian learned to hate that damn white horse.
A half-century after the rivalry's inception, the schools met for another classic. The emotions culminated in 1977.
You will be that driving force to motivate those coaches and those players to beat Southern Cal. We will be the green machine.
Go over to the pep rally. It was our first indication of anything that had anything to do with green.
And so all of a sudden the place went absolutely wild.
We are Green Machine! We are the Green Machine!
On game day, Notre Dame warmed up in their traditional blue uniforms. But when the Irish gathered for the pregame speech, Coach Dan Devine had a surprise waiting for them. Hanging in each locker was a green jersey.
Nobody had any clue that this was going to happen. Everybody's ripping off the blue jerseys and they're putting their green jerseys on, and coaches had to calm us down. Guys had lost it so bad in there, were so fired up that I swear they thought we were going to leave everything in the locker room.
Look at the jersey. That's a Notre Dame football team for the first time wearing green. You talk about stretching emotions, finding an advantage, whatever it takes.
As we ran out there, you could see the Trojan players shaking their heads a little bit, just going, oh, jeez, we're going to get killed.
We got stunned by that. I mean, I'm saying, who cares what jerseys these guys wear, you know? But the noise intensity, I could feel it on my face.
An inspired Notre Dame team routed the Trojans and was so energized that Devine kept them in green jerseys the rest of the season. The Fighting Irish went on to win another title. What originated in an Iowa cornfield 8 decades earlier has produced 18 national championship teams and showcased 11 Heisman Trophy winners while bridging the geographical boundaries of college football.
My senior year, we were playing UCLA. They had on brand new powder blue jerseys. They had brand new shoes. They were Pumas at the blue stripe, and they had little roses on their jerseys. They were going to the Rose Bowl. Not. Not that day, not that year. And we took them apart.
USC has waged other wars, but none has been closer to home than the battle against intra-city rival UCLA.
The SC guys, they always thought they were kind of the elite of LA, and I don't know why they did. We were in a better part of the city.
We always felt that they were a basketball school, and SC epitomized what college football was all about.
It's funny, their fight song, I loved that. And that guy would come out in a white horse and start prancing around. I got more fired up than they did. I just loved it.
Separated by just 12 miles, it is truly neighbor versus neighbor.
The players on each side of the line of scrimmage played with each other or against each other in high school. So everybody knew everybody else. And you know how it is with a fight with your brother, you want to win.
You get knocked out of bounds on their sideline, and those very guys that you shook hands with as a little kid are, you know, jumping on your chest.
It's like you can't go home if you don't win. You got to live with those people from UCLA. It's almost like, you know, Civil War.
In 1967, 90,000 fans packed the LA Coliseum to see #1 UCLA line up against #4 USC. The Bruins' Gary Beeben versus the Trojans' O.J. Simpson in a face-to-face duel for the Heisman Trophy.
We knew this was bigger than anything we'd ever dreamed of. Everything was on the table, the national championship, the Rose Bowl, the city. It was just going to be a special experience.
There's his brilliance. 13 yards.
Simpson was magnificent on the ground while Beeben orchestrated UCLA's offense.
Who can throw long? The bomb is going its way. Touchdown.
Down 20-14 in the fourth quarter, USC had the ball in its own territory.
It was 3rd and 8. Never forget it because I called the play. It was called G Green 24 X out. We're going to throw the play action pass to our split end. Our quarterback got up there and he changed it. Red 23. Reach out and grab the closest guy to you because Simpson's going to get the ball.
Page hands off to Simpson. Big hole. He's up to the 40. He's up to the 45. The 50. Down to the 45. The 40. The 35. He's going to go all the way. The 20. The 15. The 10. The 5. O.J. Simpson scores for USC. A 64-yard run by Simpson. Holy smokes. This biggest game of the year has been just that.
Simpson's thrilling 64-yard run lifted Southern Cal to a 1-point victory.
Folks forget, and I always remember, that we still had 10 minutes to go. We still could have put 3 points up on the board and would have won the ball game. But when you look at the scope and the magnitude of that game, it was one of the great performances.
While the Trojans captured the national championship, Beeman collected the Heisman. O.J. would have to wait till next season to bring home his trophy. For over 100 years, Cal and Stanford have been fighting in a rivalry affectionately known as the Big Game.
It's laughed upon, big game, when sometimes both schools will be 4 and 6 coming in, or worse than that. It's funny, I grew up in LA watching SC and UCLA play, and that meant the Rose Bowl, but this always seemed to me less and more at the same time.
The reward of victory goes beyond bragging rights. Each season, these teams fight for possession of the axe, the coveted trophy which has symbolized their rivalry since the late 1800s.
Playing for something like the axe, that could make or break your season. And you're out there and you're competing your heart out. Even though we only had it one time out of my 3 years there, the one year we did have it was quite fun.
If you've lost to Cal, you got to get the axe back. The night before, former players come back and they give you the General S. Patton speeches about how you don't lose to Cal. You get that, you feel that passion. You have butterflies the morning of the game. You can hardly handle your breakfast. And as you get to the locker room, there is that feeling of, this is the last time that you're going to see these guys and play with these guys. In fact, go to war with these guys. And it's got to be against Cal. And you've got to win that axe. And you know that everything ends with that game.
In 1883, Leland Stanford was rejected for a position on the University of California's Board of Regents. He responded by building his own university. A rivalry was born. Cal and Stanford met for the first time in 1892, but the capacity crowd had to wait over an hour when it was discovered that neither team had brought a football. This was the first indication that the only thing to ever expect in the big game is the unexpected.
Whether a team's 10-1 and the other one's 1-10, you never know who's going to win the game. And I think that's what makes a rivalry, is the unknown.
But here's the game, 4th and 17. Elway back to throw inside his 5. Looks way downfield.
In 1982, Stanford's senior quarterback, John Elway, engineered a thrilling late-game comeback. With 4 seconds to play, a field goal gave the Cardinal the lead.
Only a miracle can save the Bears. The Stanford miles out on the field.
We just erupted. We knew at that point we definitely had this game.
But there was still time for one more play.
The Bears in a seemingly impossible situation. They pretty well have to run it back. Rodgers along the sideline, another one. They're still in deep trouble at midfield. They tried to do a couple of... The ball is still loose as they get it to Rodgers. They give it back now to the 30. They're down to the 20. Oh, the band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone. He's going to go into the end zone. The Bears have won. Oh, my God.
That being my last college game, it was the most tragic thing that had ever happened to me. And the only thing that we wish we'd have done is, taught the trombone player how to tackle.
When you look in front of you and you see 20 yards full of band members, I just said, put your head down and run. And all I remember at that point was hoping that I'd live. I was at the bottom of a pile with 50 guys on me going, I can't breathe, get up, get up.
It was just absolutely a wonderful game and a wonderful play for college football. But for the 80-so guys in that locker room and the coaches, it was a devastating moment.
The most amazing, sensational, dramatic, heart-rending, thrilling finish in the history of college football.
Never ask a man where he's from. If he's from Texas, he'll tell you. If he's not, there's no point in further embarrassing him.
Texas looks at Oklahoma as their poor relative. And I think Oklahoma people take great pride in knocking off the giant, as it were.
Each October, the Red River that divides Texas and Oklahoma runs straight through the Texas State Fair and the Cotton Bowl in Dallas.
Quite an event, quite an event. And then there's this football game that just takes over. There's nothing that compares to Dallas and the Cotton Bowl on the second Saturday in October.
Texas and Oklahoma have been settling their differences on the gridiron since 1900. But this border war extends beyond the field. It is a fierce recruiting battle, with both schools competing for the same local talent.
Texas doesn't have to recruit Oklahoma to be successful. Oklahoma has to recruit Texas to be successful.
The recruiting war heated in the 1950s. Armed with a roster full of Texans, Bud Wilkinson built the Oklahoma Sooners into America's dominant team.
Bud Wilkinson was great about recruiting players from his region. And back then, on the prairie of Oklahoma and West Texas, he was getting the long, lean, fast guys, and they worked beautifully in his system.
At one time, he won 9 out of 10 games against Texas, and the more he won, the harder it was for the people there to accept that.
Texas, they don't like to lose to what they think is a hick state using star Texas players. There's the bitterness.
An ironic twist changed the rivalry in 1957. The Longhorns hired coach Darrell Royal, who was not only born in Oklahoma, but starred for Wilkinson's Sooners.
You read the end man. This is a basic formation that this guy has cheated up for our...
Royal quickly turned Texas into a national power and defeated his mentor 6 straight times.
The first time that Darrell Royal beat Oklahoma, and he won it by 1 point, 15-14 in 1958, he was outside throwing up. He just had a hard time thinking that he had just beaten Coach Wilkinson.
In 1973, 10 years after Wilkinson retired, Barry Switzer became Oklahoma's new head coach. The animosity over recruiting continued.
There was no love lost between Royal and Switzer. They were always feuding, fighting. One time they went so far as to even take lie detector tests to prove that they weren't violating NCAA recruiting rules.
The acrimony came to a head before the 1976 game.
Darrell discovered that Oklahoma, in addition to all the rest of it, had been spying on his workouts. Oh, he was livid. He accused him of spying. Switzer said he's chasing ghosts, and Darrell was determined to win that one game.
I know we've worked hard for the contest. We're eager. We're looking forward to it, and we want to play in the ball game.
From the Cotton
By
Bowl.
kickoff, the tension had reached a fever pitch.
Texas. Now, we've had all kinds of noise about people spying on each other, in particular Darrell Royal making charges that Oklahoma has been spying on him. I want to get...
President Gerald Ford was at the game, and then beforehand they posed for a picture with the president, and neither would recognize the other, neither would shake hands.
Ford was trying to smooth the thing over, and it didn't work, because Darrell didn't want to be anywhere near Switzer.
It was 27. I saw it at 27 when the flag blew, and we came back. It was 27. Gives Darrell back to pass. He's got time. He has nobody to throw to, though, and they're going to get it. Oh, what a great play by Rites.
In a bitter defensive struggle, the teams played to a 6-6 tie.
So Barry Switzer and Darrell Royal watch their two teams have at it.
Nobody's satisfied. Darrell walking off the field, he's retching, he's vomiting on the field. He looked like a man who'd driven a truck across Death Valley without a windshield.
This was the last game that Darrell Royal coached against Oklahoma. And throughout the game, Oklahoma fans were taunting him, saying, "Sorry, bastard." And it was kind of ironic in a way, because they forgot that he was once a legend as a football player in Oklahoma.
Darrell Royal retired at the end of the '76 season. and was immediately inducted into the Texas Sports Hall of Fame. 24 years later, he was honored again. In 2000, the once reviled Texas coach was enshrined in the Oklahoma Hall of Fame.
You know what's at stake. Play it like champions, play it with poise. You get down, you get back up. You get them down, you play like hurricanes.
For the last 2 decades, a trio of powerhouse programs from the state of Florida has resided near the top of the national polls. It's a fight over local talent, a battle for state bragging rights, and a war for national supremacy.
From 1983 until 93, Florida State and Miami, the winner of that game, won 5 national championships in 10 years. That's every other year. You talk about pressure ball games. Oh, it's vicious if you lose.
It's up. Desperate to the right. That is a heartbreaker.
Then comes the University of Florida. One of us has been number 1 in the nation. The other's been about 3 or 4. And so now then, the Florida State game became the game of the year.
The fans and the teams and everyone involved feels like they're superior if they beat you. There's a passion about football that's not like any other sport in the South.
The Florida Wars furthered the heritage of Southern football bragging rights, a tradition that began in a small state where they say the day you're born, you must decide whether you're crimson or blue.
Alabama's a state of 4 million people. Alabama doesn't have any professional athletics. Alabama doesn't have any real tourism that just attracts everybody like Florida does. Alabama has college football. It's what we are good at, and it's what every single person in that state is proud of.
There is a passion that I can't explain. If Auburn and Alabama played on Sundays, there wouldn't be church in the state. There wouldn't be any Sunday school. There wouldn't be nothing.
It is a rift fueled by stubborn Southern pride. A dispute over game expenses forced a suspension of the series between 1908 and 1947, and it took a resolution from the Alabama House of Representatives to reinstate the rivalry. The schools were arguing over $34.
We could speak to each other all year, but come that one Saturday, I hate your guts. I hate you, I hate your family, I hate your ancestors. It can get pretty nasty.
When Bear Bryant arrived in 1958 to Tuscaloosa, in his first meeting with the players, he said to them, "We are going to beat that Cal College on the other side of the state."
And he said Auburn people wore Tom McCann shoes. Now, I don't know what a Tom McCann shoe is or was, but apparently it wasn't a top-of-the-line shoe.
The Crimson Tide dominated the series, winning all but 5 games under Bryant.
I just want to brag on our team. I think they proved their greatness beyond any doubt. In 4 years, they wound up being what I think is the best team in the United States.
In 1972, second-ranked Alabama was minutes away from an undefeated season. They led 16-3 when Auburn broke through with a big play.
Roger Mitchell blocked the kick. Roger Mitchell blocked the kick. David Wagner is
A blocked punt suddenly cut the lead to 6.
Well, the electricity was a palpable shift in the stadium. Auburn kicks off, holds Alabama, 4th down. Now, what are the odds?
on the far right, and Auburn is again going after the kick, as you might imagine. It is blocked. It is blocked. It's going on a run. It's going on a run. He's going to score. David Wagner. Auburn has just blocked another kick.
The same guy blocked the punt, and the same guy picked it up and scored with it. like striking twice in the same place, and you couldn't believe it.
17-16. Punt, Bama, punt. The bumper stickers were all over the state for 10 years.
Terrible, terrible, awful football game, but a win that will live in Auburn glory forever and Alabama infamy forever.
That game, like all Alabama-Auburn games since the series resumed in 1948, was played on neutral ground at Birmingham's Legion Field. Nicknamed the Iron Bowl, the seats were equally divided, but the Auburn folks always felt like the visiting team, believing that Birmingham was a Crimson Tide town. That would all change on December 2nd, 1989, 17 years to the day after Punt, Bama Punt.
The Auburn people have the 1989 game circled in their minds as one of the great days of the millennium, because that was the first year that the great and mighty University of Alabama set foot in Jordan-Hare Stadium. Grown men and women were crying.
Most emotional day I've ever spent involved in the college football game. 1 hour before kickoff, and the stadium's already filled, and the people are screaming their guts out.
Alabama was 10-0, ranked second in the country. Auburn gets the first possession. They go deep. Now, this was a Pat Dye team. They didn't throw the ball.
Center right. Oh, over the shoulder inside the 10. This place is a mob scene.
Auburn goes in for the score. They're ahead 7-0. They never trail.
Auburn 30, Alabama 20. Let the celebrating begin.
It's a day that Auburn people will not forget for the rest of their lives.
It was a historical moment for the Auburn people. The emotions were at an all-time high. The fact that the game was played at Auburn was much bigger than the outcome of the game.
Tonight's what our program's all about. I watched you grow up and become men. I watched you become men.
Time, baby.
The tradition of rivalries extends from 100,000-seat shrines to the remote fields of small schools. In Pennsylvania, Lehigh and Lafayette have dueled more than any other two schools in college football history. In Indiana, Division III rivals Wabash and DePaul battled each year for the rights to the 350-pound Monon Bell. And for over a century, Williams and Amherst have been meeting in a showdown called the biggest little game in America.
You've got a group of guys who are there for pure reasons, chasing a dream. It's not a dream to be in Michigan Stadium or in South Bend or on NBC. It's a chance to have that athletic moment that you lied in bed dreaming about when you were 14.
There is an innocence to these contests, a spirit and love that echo the game's oldest rivalry. Gentlemen, you are now about to play Harvard, Yale coach Tad Jones once told his team. Never again in your lives will you do something so important.
Every person who loves college football should see a Harvard-Yale game. People today think it's Harvard-Yale, the Ivy League. When they play, it means something to those players.
The first rivalry in American sports dates back to 1701, when Yale was founded 65 years after the nation's first university, Harvard.
There's a feeling when you're playing Harvard, we're playing our own kind. That's elitist, but Yale men look down on all the other Ivies a little bit. With Harvard, there's always that sneaking suspicion that maybe they're really better than we are.
In 1875, Harvard and Yale met in what is widely regarded as the first true game of American football. The Crimson emerged victorious, but it was Yale who became the sport's initial power. During football's first 4 decades, the Bulldogs captured 11 national championships, often at Harvard's expense. Although both schools would fall from the national spotlight in the 20th century, the rivalry remained heated. In 1968, both teams were undefeated when they met to decide the Ivy League championship.
November 23rd, 1968, always, of course, the last game of the season. And the way the game unfolded, Yale looked like they were just going to do a number on Harvard. I mean, they took command right away.
Yale jumped out to a 22-0 lead, and by the fourth quarter, were ahead 29-13. The game's final minutes seemed like a formality.
You have to bear in mind that we were so confident at that point, and we were so far ahead, that Coach Koza had already called up the substitute players.
Harvard refused to quit, and with less than a minute to play, second-string quarterback Frank Champy would strike.
5, and Freeman is in for a touchdown.
Harvard's two-point conversion was successful, but they still needed a miracle.
Onside kick, who's going to get it? Scramble, loose ball,
They were getting tired. They were slowing down. They were getting dumb, making some mistakes. We took advantage of them.
Can they score? Frank Champy coming up. He looks. He wants to throw. He's looking. He's going to run. No, he's scrambling. He's back at his 15. He throws the ball. Touchdown! He hits the touchdown again. Oh, it is 29-27, and people are all over this field. There is no time left, but of course, Harvard will be trying for the 2 points. Gatto out to the right and Barney out to the left. He's fading back to throw. He fires it to Barney.
Remarkably, Harvard scored 16 points in 42 seconds and shared a piece of the Ivy League title with the Bulldogs.
As we have seen, one of the greatest finishes in the history of college football at this stadium today.
When the game ended, the Harvard Crimson, within an hour, came out with a headline saying, "Harvard wins 29-29.
It was one of the worst defeats I think I had, and it wasn't a loss. I always felt that game was played up in heaven and dropped on us because there's no way that could ever happen again.
We certainly were never hopeless. I was proud of it. What made it special for us was just the great game of football. It makes people's eyes light up. It's unforgettable.
General Dwight Eisenhower once said to a group of cadets, "The Army and the Navy are best friends in the world 364 and a half days of the year. But on this one Saturday afternoon, we are the worst of enemies."
All of us feel we're part of a very special brotherhood. Douglas MacArthur talked about how our responsibility wasn't just to our teammates and not just to the Army team, but to the ghosts of 1,000,000 soldiers.
The Army-Navy game is a grand display of the United States military and offers a unique view of American pageantry.
Saturday morning, they have the parade, and you sit there and you see the Corps come in, and you see the brigade come in. You see how they respect each other, and you feel good about being an American. And after the game, is there any single moment more heartwarming when they play the alma maters, and the Navy players stand at attention when the Army alma mater is played, and vice versa? If a tear doesn't come to your eye, you're not human.
It is a spirit that has resonated throughout the series' history. In 1946, led by the glamorous backfield of Glenn Davis and Doc Blanchard, two-time defending national champion Army was on its way to another title. The Cadets faced a struggling Navy team that had lost its last 7 games.
That was some game. Gosh, we were favored 35 points, and we hadn't lost a game in 3 years.
And so we went out there, you know, we were gonna kill them.
Army led 21-6 at the half, but a determined Navy team would not relent. 2 scores narrowed the margin to 21-18. In the final moments, Navy was once again on the move.
The coach put me in, and I got off a nice run, about 30, 32 yards down to the 2-yard line. And then we ran a couple of just straight ahead plays, and it was like hitting a brick wall.
Army leading. Army playing brilliantly on defense with their backs against the wall. Navy finding finally to pull this game out of the fire. The scoreboard clock keeps moving. 10 seconds left.
The Middies kept pounding away at the goal line until they finally ran out of time. They had fallen short of victory, but stood tall on pride.
The goalposts are coming down. Navy had the ball 4 yards away from the touchdown and just missed.
When the game was over, the Navy fans poured out onto the field, carried off their team on their shoulders as if they had won. Psychologically, we were beaten. We were physically beaten. They physically beat us that day.
Army's narrow escape cost them the national championship.
Tom Hamilton, the coach of that Navy team, was asked, did you think of kicking a field goal to tie the game at 21-21? And Captain Hamilton looked at the reporter and said, a tie? A tie is like kissing your sister.
In 1963, Navy quarterback Roger Staubach was on his way to winning the Heisman Trophy when he prepared to face Army. The winner would have a shot at taking down #1 Texas in the Cotton Bowl. It was one of the most anticipated Army-Navy games since World War II.
John F. Kennedy was shot on a Friday afternoon, and we had practice that afternoon, and once we got over to practice, we just knelt down and prayed. We were close to John F. Kennedy. He visited us at training camp one time. Yeah, he was a Navy guy, and I wasn't even thinking about football.
A shattered America was in a state of shock, and the Army-Navy game was canceled. But feeling that her husband would want it, the First Lady requested that the game be played. 2 weeks after the assassination, on Pearl Harbor Day, flags were flying half-mast as both teams took the field as soldiers. Playing this game would be an act of duty.
There was kind of a buildup that was inside that was just waiting to explode. So once you were in that stadium, it was electric, and both teams were really good football teams, and we played our guts out.
Staubach led Navy to a 21-7 lead in the fourth quarter. Army then launched an assault. In the game's final seconds, they trailed by 6 and had the ball at Navy's doorstep. But this time, the clock ran out on the cadets.
2 seconds, 1 second, it's over! Oh my goodness, it's over!
They didn't get that last play off, but it was a great game. It was a great ending for Navy. The celebration was one of victory, but yet it was couched with an atmosphere of frustration and disappointment of a very deep loss of your commander-in-chief.
Over time, the championship significance of the Army-Navy game has diminished, but the rivalry has not. It carries a passion that touches the very core of the college game. It is simply about leaving your soul out on the field.
We don't have to be, in the top 25 to put on a good show here, because everyone understands what this game means and this rivalry means. It's about friendships, it's about commitment, it's about camaraderie, and it's about going to war with the other person and trusting them. That, to me, is worth everything.